from PRX.
Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's time for the podcaster that I just said, what kind of joke are we going to slip in here? And my brain said collectible plates. And I was speechless. I said, wait, for the intro of a sleep podcast, you want me to talk about collectible plates? The podcaster, that would be like a collectible plate in a dusty box somewhere. Best, appreciated, but also forgotten about at the same time. And in this case, and in the plate case, because it's collectible, it's being collected wherever it is. It's double positive. And if you don't understand, then you might be in the right place, because it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. And here's a couple ways, these sponsors, that I'm able to be here for you. 100% free, twice a week. Thanks. Sleep With Me podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are the things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. Hey, everybody, it's Scoots. I'm talking about tonight's sponsor, Helix Sleep. And if you don't have a Helix mattress in your life, you got to think about taking the quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep. I've been sleeping in my Helix probably longer than you've been listening to this podcast. And I love my bed so much. I have a move coming up, and I'm trying to decide, because I have to move in a couple different stages just due to things outside of my control. And I know I'm going to be in my apartment, but most of my stuff's going to be gone. And I'm like, should I keep my Helix there and then buy another Helix for my next destination? Or should I pay to have that Helix moved, but I don't want to be without it? Because I don't think I'll be able to sleep without it, because I love sleeping in my Helix. And I know it'll be super easy if I take the Helix quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep. Maybe my needs and feel preferences have changed. So I could see what my options are. I could choose between a Luxe mattress, a Helix Elite, or just, whatever comes up in my search. I know I'll have choices. So the question is, do you have that kind of relationship with your mattress that you don't want to be without it? Because if you don't, what are you waiting for, right? You could have a Helix shipped straight to your door free of charge and get testing it out. But the first thing you need to do is just take that quiz, because Helix has you and your needs in mind, your feel preferences. How do you like to sleep? How does your partner like to sleep? So it is time for you to get a new bed. Because trust me, this summer, I do not want to be without my Helix mattress. And Helix has got an amazing deal lined up for you. Go to helixsleep.com/sleep for 27% off site-wide during their 4th of July sale happening now. This offer is exclusive for listeners of Sleep With Me. That's helixsleep.com/sleep for this exclusive 4th of July sale offer. That's 27% off site-wide. helixsleep.com/sleep. Thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots, and this is a message for anybody that wants to support the show, but you're not in a position to do it financially. You're a super listener, or you want free access to Sleep With Me Plus. You want to be a part of our Snore Squad, our Boar Bunch. I'm thinking of other terms. If you want to be a part of that, be a part of the Boar Bunch, sign up for our referral program, sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer. If you can't support the show financially, please consider right now signing up for the referral program and then getting some referrals. You'll get access to Sleep With Me Plus for free just by referring people to the free podcast, and you'll be helping the show out. It would be way better if you join the referral program and help the show out through the referral program than say, you know what, Scoots, maybe one day I'll support the podcast financially. I could use your help as a Boar Squad, Snooze Squad, Boar Bunch right now. And, we're doing fun stuff stuff on there. You could get free access to Sleep With Me Plus. So if we have to make any changes with the free show, you got access to the paid version of the show. And all you had to do is put a little love and time into it. So if you love the podcast, but you can't support it on Sleep With Me Plus, don't put off supporting the show. Support it right now at sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer. And I can't tell you how powerful that is. Like you being involved right now in the future of the podcast versus, one day I'll support the show financially. I could use your help right now at sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer, REFER. Thanks. Oh, Mystery Bard. A lot of people help out on the show. Who are they?
Chris Posty Posterson, who sounds like an earful, wrote the theme song. Edits episodes too. Carl W. the Legend, also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the Mystery Bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at JonathanMann.net. I'll write a song for you, any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Hannah like banana. Leah does the transcripts.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. And don't forget, the most comfortable way to listen to Sleep With Me is with sleep phones. You can get Sleep With Me merch, Sleep With Me branded sleep phones at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep-phones. And use Sleep With Me at checkout to get $5 off your order. The only way you can get the Sleep With Me merch editions is sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep-phones. Thanks, everybody. What do you say we slow it down and get on with the show? Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether that's thoughts, things on your mind. So things you're thinking about or, past, present, future. It could be feelings, like emotions coming up related to those thoughts, or just feelings that are there, physical sensations. It could be changes in your routine or your work schedule or something else, something else going on. Whether it's weather or you feel like you're talking about the weather and you really want, whatever it is that's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off of that. And what I'm going to do, I have a safe place set aside that you're welcome to that I could send it to you. You can imagine it, or you could be here with me, I guess, in a proverbial way. Has anyone, I know I take that U2 song from the 1990s. Who would move in a proverbial way? Other than, big spirits, but because BB, I really thought that was the wittiest thing I ever said, that BB-8 moves in spherical ways. But I'd have to think who moves in Scoots. He moves in proverbial ways. Doesn't really fit. I got one half of a song pun. I guess I don't, I said, I don't want to shake up any, but I said, well, don't most spiritual teachers move, they teach in proverbial ways, right? What was it? Oh, Mysterious Ways was the song. But yeah, most spiritual teachers or life lesson teachers, they teach in proverbial ways. That's one time when I was teaching and I was asleep, I said, well, I'm proverbially teaching. And luckily that was a dream within a dream. Okay, so I gotta get back to this intro. I have no idea where I was. I got distracted by that dancing. Have you ever seen a dancing proverb before? Because I was just seeing one earlier. It was moving, and I said that's like like you're proverbially dancing in a proverbial way. And, I may be the only one to be able to appreciate it because I don't think I could put it into words except by using the words. I don't know if I could come up with a proverb. Okay, I could try, but I'm actually supposed to be introducing a sleep podcast. And I don't think I quite have the brain power to come up with a proverb for how lovely you're moving. I mean, it's kind of like a statue has come off of a pedestal and started, you're like flowing, and you're doing that kind of hand stuff too, but it's a kind of interpretive dance. I'm comfortable. I say, well, that's a proverb. It's putting me at ease too. Sometimes interpretive dance, like in this situation, I feel like because it's so contextually out of place, I can appreciate it. When I'm supposed to be watching proverbial dance, and then you say, okay, did you pay attention? Because when I went to Catholic school, that would happen every once in a while. They say, okay, can you tell us about the, what were the dancers and they were, I guess they weren't called proverbial dancers, but in a sense they were. Oh, I just felt one of my teachers roll her eyes from far, far away. So I better get back to this podcast intro. She says, liturgical dance is not a proverb, but it's not proverbial. And I'd say, oh boy, how do we get this deep? Because I don't want to get it. I say, are you sure about that? Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a little story here. Actually, tonight we're going to be unboxing a board game. So let me get back on track. So if you're new, welcome. Regular listeners, you already got an earful. New listeners, you did as well. I tend to go off topic and get mixed up early, sometimes after I introduce the show and sometimes before it. But I'm here to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, and superfluous tangents, which you've just witnessed, all to take your mind off stuff and keep you company while you fall asleep. This podcast, it doesn't actually put you to sleep on its own. It's more here to be here as you drift off, to keep, to be your companion. That's why the shows are about an hour. So you have plenty of time to drift off. No pressure. And if you can't sleep, I'm going to be here to keep you company to the very end. This is also, and you probably already figured this out, a podcast you don't really listen to. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you say, well, when does it get started? I say, it's got started right when that, a few minutes before that proverbial dancer came in the room. What about this one? I'm your proverbial dancer, dancing to convey money. That's by the great Tina Turner. And that was her song. I don't know if it was a proverb or it was a story. I don't know if it was also a proverb. To be honest, I'm not 100% clearly. If you've been listening, you say, Scoots, just once again, I don't think you know what that word means. And I say, yeah, but if that does fit, those are the right amount of syllables for I'm your proverbial dancer. Dance to convey meaning. The words could mean the story gives meaning to the words we do. I don't know. I'd have to figure out the last part. Okay. So don't really pay attention to me. You don't really need to listen. I'm almost a grade above background noise. And that can be hard to get used to. This whole podcast can be hard to get used to for new listeners. So if you're in that space right now, that is a very normal place to be in. Where you say, what is this nonsense this person is going on about? That's the majority of people, because of course you've tried other stuff to fall asleep. And maybe you heard about the show or someone told you about it. And you say, when is this gonna, and I say, that's very normal. If you're skeptical or doubtful, all I can tell you is don't pay too much attention to me. but also give it a few tries. And that doesn't come from me. That comes from hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who, like maybe you, disliked the podcast at first and then said, well, after the second or third try, I realized, oh, it's not that I disliked it. I just wasn't sure. Like kind of like some movies. I was just talking about this with somebody where you're spending too much time trying to figure it out. And then the second time you can enjoy it. This one, by the time you listen to me for 20 or 25 minutes, you're going to either steam's going to be coming out your ears or you say, oh, I get it. He really means it. Don't pay any attention to him. He's not a proverbial dancer dancing to convey meaning. He's something dancing for and speaking nonsense. So you could sleep when you want to sleep. Ooh. So anyway, don't really listen to me. I'm not here to push you to sleep. I'm here to keep you company, be your bore friend, your bore bae, your bore cuz, your bore sib. Your bore bestie. The structure of the show can also throw you off the first few times. So the show starts off with a greeting, so you feel welcome. Then there's support for listeners. Then there's support for the show. Then there's the intro. The intro goes from like minute 6 or minute 8 to about minute, I'm trying to trim them down, but, I don't know, 12 to 20 minutes into the show. And you say, well, when does the show get started? I say, well, the intro is a show within a show, kind of. That gives you time to relax and unwind and get comfortable and start to drift off, whether you're doing some sort of bedtime routine or unwinding routine, whether you're getting ready for bed or you're in bed getting comfortable. And a small percentage of listeners fall asleep during the intro, and then 2 or 3% of people skip the intro. A few thousand people listen to story-only episodes on Patreon, but the majority of listeners... Yeah, they get some distance from the daytime to the nighttime, and then there'll be, so then the intro will end, then we'll have some business to keep the show free, and then there'll be our story, which will be a board game unboxing. And you say, oh boy, I love board games or card games. And I say, well, you may love this one, but I'm just going to be looking at the cards in the box and stuff and describing it. And wondering how I would play the game and then getting mixed up because I haven't read the rules. So that'll hopefully put you to sleep or keep you company. And then there's some thank yous. So it's just structure of the show. The other thing is the reason I make the show is because I've been there in the deep, dark night, tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep, waking up, whatever it is. I've dealt with a lot of that stuff. And I know how it feels. And I know it doesn't really feel good normally. But knowing someone else is there to keep me company or to just take my mind off stuff, even if it's not their intention. Like when I listened to comedy radio as a kid, I don't know, it helped. Helped me feel less alone, and it took my mind off stuff. So that's really what I want to be here to do for you, and then maybe you fall asleep. The other reason I make the show, and I keep coming out, whatever, we're probably, I don't know if we're over 1,000. When I'm recording this, we haven't made 1,000 episodes, but when this comes out, we might be past 1,000 episodes. So I made 1,000 episodes because I believe you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve a place you could rest, get comfortable, and drift off. That's important to me because if your world's better, my world is better. And you say, no, not, I live over, here. And I say, no, it's true. If your world's a little bit better, our entire planet's a little bit better too. And if you want to quibble about that, let me just tell you, you deserve a good night's sleep, okay? You deserve some rest so you can, have your day tomorrow be a little bit more manageable. Or that you don't have all the rigmarole around sleeplessness. So that's what I'd like to provide if I can. Like I said, this show does not work for everybody, so give it a few tries. But I really appreciate you coming by and checking it out. I really work hard, I yearn and I strive, and I really hope I can help you fall asleep. Thanks again for coming by. And here's really a couple ways I'm able to be here for you free twice a week. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots. And if you fall asleep fast, like right after the story starts, thanks for listening to the intro. But you're one of the groups who I really need to support the show. Or if you usually fall asleep fast and something changed, Sleep With Me Plus is built with fall asleep fast listeners in mind. And tons of other super listeners. But if you just happen to be hearing me and listening to me right now, this message is for you. If you fall asleep fast, is that valuable to you? Like, do you consider this show a service that makes your life better? And is this a service worth paying for? Is it a service worth more than other services you already pay for? Because I know I pay for my books, I pay for my music, I pay for my movies, my shows, my comic books. There's tons of other stuff I use that makes my life better. So if you fall asleep fast, could you support the show at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus right now? And don't wait for a better time, because without some of the support of fall asleep fast listeners, they're the ability to make the show and put you to sleep fast is not going to be around. So please, if you're the one listening and hearing me now, I fall asleep fast. Yes, that's valuable to me. Don't wait. Sign up now at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the second time you get to hear me say that. Welcome. Because this episode is constructed from an intro from the past and our Read With Me episodes here. It's a Frankie and Victor episode with our friend Frank and his, I'm reading from the book Victor and Frankie, also known as a famous Mary Shelley novel. And this is a little bit different than episodes we've done with Sleep With Me, but we tested this out on Sleep With Me Plus. It was so popular, we wanted to bring it to everyone. So it's me reading through a book, also paraphrasing, making stuff sleepy, but it's not perfectly sleepy. Just like everything else we make, It exists within this world, but it's pretty chill. So I hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, more of Victor and Frankie. Thanks, everybody. Chapter 4. From this day, natural philosophy, and particularly chemistry, in the most comprehensive sense of the term, became nearly my sole occupation. I read with ardor these works so full of genius and discrimination, which modern inquirers have written on these subjects. I attended the lectures and cultivated the acquaintance of men of science and of the university. I found that even in M. Krempt, a great deal of sound sense and real information, combined, it is true, with a disliking physiognomy, Jominy, I like how that sounds, and manners, but not on that account the less valuable. And in Waldman I found a true friend. His gentleness was never tinged by dogmatism, and his instructions were given with an air of frankness and good nature that banished every idea of of pedantry. In a thousand ways he smoothed for me the path of knowledge, and made the most abstruse inquiries clear and facile, clear and facile to my apprehension. My application was at first fluctuating and uncertain. It gained strength as soon as I proceeded. It became soon so ardent and eager that the stars often disappeared in the light of morning whilst I was yet engaged in my laboratory. As I applied so closely, it may have been easily conceived that my progress was rapid. My ardor was indeed the astonishment of the students, and my proficiency that of the masters. Professor Krempt often asked me with a sly smile how Cornelius Agrippa went on, whilst M. Waldman expressed the most heartful exultation in my progress. 2 years passed in this manner, during which I paid no visit to Geneva, but was engaged heart and soul in the pursuit of some discoveries which I hoped to make. None but those who have experienced them can conceive of the none but those who none but those who have experienced them can conceive of the enticements of science. In other studies, you have to go as far as others have gone before you, and there's nothing more to know. But in a scientific pursuit, there's a continual food for discovery and wonder. A mind of moderate capacity which closely pursues one's study must infallibly arrive at great proficiency in that study. And I, who continually sought the attainment of one object of pursuit and was solely wrapped up in this, improved so rapidly that at the end of 2 years I made some discoveries in the improvement of some chemical instruments, which procured me great esteem and admiration at the university. When I had arrived at this point, and had become as well acquainted with theory and practice of natural philosophy as depended on the lessons of my professors at Ingolstadt, my residence there being no longer conducive to my improvements, I thought of returning to my friends in my native town, when an incident happened that protracted my stay. One of the phenomena which had particularly attracted my attention was the structure of the human frame, and indeed any animal imbued with life. Whence, I often asked myself, did the principle of life proceed? It was a bold question, and one which has ever been considered as a mystery. Yet, with how many things are we on the brink of becoming acquainted, if cowardice or carelessness did not restrain our inquiries? I resolved in these circumstances in my mind, and determined thenceforth to apply myself more particularly to those branches of natural philosophy which relate to physiology, unless I had been animated by an almost supernatural enthusiasm. My application to this study would have been irksome and almost intolerable. To examine the causes of life, we must first have recourse with passing to the big farm. I became acquainted with the science of anatomy, but this was not sufficient. I must also observe the circle of life that happens under the leaves particularly, and the changes that can happen. They say that it's dinosaurs down there in the primordial ooze. But what makes the primordial ooze ooze? It was in my education my father had taken the greatest precautions that my mind should be impressed with no things that I'd say, hey, that's autumnal. And, I've been thinking about that when I've been, trying to drift off into dreamland. I do not ever remember to have trembled at a tale. There's a song in your time called by Stevie Wonder about superstition. Or there's a movie about dustbusters. I didn't experience those kind of things. Darkness had no effect upon my fancy, and a churchyard was to me merely a receptacle of, to open the doors. There's the steeple. There's all the people. It's just that's just cement, man, or stones. I don't know what they're made of. Marble? I don't know, but that's all it is. Yet it is the being, it's the seat of beauty and strength. And like they say, like the worm's got to eat too. Now I was led to examine the cause and progress of this. What goes on under the leaves, in the deep forest, the old leaves, I would say. And I spent days and nights looking at these leaves, vaults of leaves, houses of leaves. My attention was fixed upon every object. The most insupportable of the delicacy of human feelings. I saw how the fine form of human, didn't meet their potential. I beheld the passing of time, and the decay leaves decay, and it happens. They succeed to the blooming cheek of life. I saw how there was leaves and there was other things. They call it compost. It inherited the wonders of what became before it and became something else. I paused, examining and analyzing all the minutiae of causation as exemplified in the change from active to, resting under the leaves, until from the midst of this darkness, a sudden light broke in upon me, a light so brilliant and wondrous, yet so simple, that while I became dizzy with the immensity of the prospect which it illustrated, I was surprised that so many other men of genius who had directed their inquiries toward the same science, that I alone should be reserved to discover such an astonishing secrets. Remember, I'm not recording this is an honest vision of a genius, not someone spewing nonsense. The sun does not more certainly shine in the heavens than that which I now affirm is true. Some miracle might have produced it, yet the stages of discovery were distinct and probable. After days and nights of incredible labor and fatigue, I succeeded in discovering the cause of generation in life. Nay, more, I myself became capable of bestowing animation upon lifeless leaves. The astonishment which I had first experienced on this discovery soon gave place to delight and rapture. After so much time spent in painful labor, to arrive once at the summit of my desires was the most gratifying consummation of my toils. But this discovery was so great and overwhelming that all the steps by which I had progressively led to it were obliterated, and I beheld only the results. What had been the study and desire of the wisest people since the creation of the world was now within my grasp. Not that, like a magic scene, it all opened upon me at once. The information I had obtained was of a nature rather direct to my endeavors, so soon as I should point them towards the object of my search, than to exhibit that object already accomplished. I was like that thing that lived under the leaves, buried under leaves, but found a way to the surface, to the light, aided by only one glimmering and seemingly ineffectual light. I see by your eagerness and the wonder and hope which your eyes express, my friend, that you expect to be informed of the secret with which I am acquainted. That cannot be. Listen patiently until the end of my story, and you will easily perceive why I am reserved upon the subject. I will not lead you on unguarded and ardent as I then was, to futility, total futility and infallible misery. Learn from me, if not by my precepts, at least by my example, because it's not a great idea, this acquirement of knowledge. And how much happier is that person who believes his hometown to be the world? There's even a song in your world about it, your hometown, than those who aspire to become greater than their nature will allow. When I found so astonishing a power placed within my hands, I hesitated a long time concerning the matter which I should employ it. Although I possessed the capacity of bestowing animation, I had yet to prepare a frame for the reception of it with all its intricacies and fibers and things. Leaves have veins in them. If you could look at a leaf in the sun, this still remained a work of inconceivable difficulty and labor. I doubted at first whether I should attempt the creation of a being like myself, or one of simpler organization, but my imagination was too much exalted by my first success to permit me to doubt of my ability to give life to something so wonderful and complete as myself. The materials at present within my command hardly appeared adequate to so arduous an undertaking. But I doubted not that I should ultimately succeed. I prepared myself for a multitude of reverses. My operations might be incessantly baffled, and at last my work would be imperfect. Yet when I considered the improvement which every day takes place in science and mechanics, I was encouraged to hope my present attempts would at least lay the foundations of future success. Nor could I consider the magnitude and complexity of my plan as any argument of its impracticability. It was with these feelings that I began the creation of a friend. I was going to start with a leaf, but then I said, what if I could just make a friend? A friend indeed. As the minuteness of the parts formed a great hindrance to my speed, I resolved, contrary to my first intention, to make a giant leaf, a friend that's a giant leaf friend. A gigantic stature, I'd said about 8 feet in height, and proportionally large, too. I would make the greatest leaf ever made. The greatest leaf, but this would be a leaf-based being, and a being-based leaf. I don't know if it would be a being-based leaf, but it would be a leaf and a friend to me. And, of course, the biggest, so people would be very, and after, I formed this determination, and having spent some months successfully collecting and arranging my materials, I began. No one can conceive the variety of feelings which bore me onwards like a hurricane, bore me onwards like a strong wind. In the first enthusiasm of success, life and the big farm appeared to me ideal bounds, which I should break through and pour a torrent of light into our dark world. A new leaf-based species would bless me as its creator and source. Many happy and excellent natures would owe their being to me. No father could claim the gratitude of his child so completely as I should deserve theirs. Pursuing these reflections, I thought that if I could bestow animation upon lifeless leaves, I might, in process of time, although I now found it impossible, I could also renew leaves that had fallen off the trees and started to, after they changed to pretty colors, they went from green to pretty colors. They went from green to pretty colors to not so pretty colors. Could I reverse that? I know now I cannot. But these thoughts supported my spirits, which I pursued with my undertaking with unremitting ardor. My cheek had grown pale with study, and my person had become emaciated with confinements. Sometimes on the very brink of certainty I failed, yet I still clung to the hope which the next day or the next hour might realize. One secret which I alone possessed was the hope to which I had dedicated myself. And the moon gazed on my midnight labors, while, with unrelaxed and breathless eagerness, I pursued nature to her hiding places. Hi, nature. Where are you? Who could conceive of how hard it was for me in my secret toil as I dabbled among the unhallowed damps of leaves, in the underleaf world, in finding those things deep in the, I don't know, what you would simply call compost, how I could make that my clay. My limbs now tremble, and my eyes swim with the remembrance. But then a resistless and almost frantic impulse urged me forward. I seemed to have lost all soul or sensation but for this one pursuit. It was indeed but a passing trance, that which made me feel with renewed acuteness soon as the unnatural stimulus ceasing to operate. I had returned to my old habits. I collected as many leaves as I could find. I liked, especially ones with stems, places I could search, different, and then, different shapes, different leaf sizes. I found the tremendous secrets of the leaf's frame in a solitary chamber at the top of the house and separated from all the other apartments by a gallery and a staircase. I kept my workshop of creation, leafy creation. My eyeballs were starting from their sockets and attending to the details of my employments. There was a leaf. They call it leaf peeping when you're looking at leaves, but I was leaf collecting. I was doing some leaf shaping. I was doing leaf pressing. I had rooms dedicated to all those. The house furnished many of my materials, and often did my human nature turn and say, is this like the touch of a leaf, not the touch of another human? I wondered with loathing. My occupation, whilst still urged on by an eagerness which perpetually increased, I brought my work near a conclusion. The summer months passed while I was thus engaged, heart and soul, in one pursuit. It was a most beautiful season. Never did the fields bestow a more plentiful harvest, or the vines yield a more luxuriant vintage. But my eyes were insensible to the charms of human nature, and the same feelings which made me neglect the scenes around me caused me to forget those friends who were so many miles absent, and who I had not seen for a long time. I knew my silence disquieted them, and I remembered the words of my father. I know that while you are pleased with yourself, and you will think of us with affection, and we shall hear regularly from you, you must pardon me if I regard any interruption in your correspondence as proof that your other duties are equally neglected. I knew, therefore, that would be my father's feelings, but I could not tear my thoughts from employments, loathsome in itself, but which had taken an irresistible hold of my imagination. I wished, as it were, to procrastinate all things related to my feelings of affection, until the great object, which swallowed up every habit of my nature, should be completed. I then thought that my father would be unjust if he ascribed my neglect to vice or faultiness on my part, but I am now convinced that he was justified in conceiving that I should not be altogether free from blame. A human being in perfection ought always to preserve a calm and peaceful mind, and never allow passion or a transitory desire to disturb his tranquility. I do not think that the pursuit of knowledge is an exception to this rule. If the study to which you apply yourself has a tendency to weaken your affections and mess up your taste for those simple pleasures in which no alloy can possibly mix, then that study is no good for nobody, and that is to say, not befitting the human mind. If this rule were always observed, if no person allowed pursuit whatsoever to interfere with the tranquility of their domestic affections, that would have been no Greece, no Caesar, it would have meant those things. No USA, maybe a gradual one, probably no Cortez, which would have been great for everybody. Probably a lot of other great things. You know what I'm saying? Not to rewrite history. But to say I was on the forefront of these disasters would be an understatement. But I forget that I am moralizing in the most interesting part of my tale, and your look reminds me to proceed. My father made no reproach in his letters, and only took knowledge of my science by inquiring in my occupations more particularly than before. Winter, spring, and summer passed away during my labors, but I did not watch the blossom or the expanding leaves, sights which always before yielded me supreme delights. So deeply I was engrossed in my occupation. The leaves of that year had withered before my work drew to a close. Is this irony? I don't know. And now every day showed me more plainly how well I had succeeded. but my enthusiasm was checked by my anxiety, and I appeared rather like one doomed to toil away, or some unwholesome trade than, more like an artist occupied by his favorite employments. Every night I was oppressed by a slow burning, and I became nervous to a most painful degree. The fall of a leaf startled me, and I shunned my fellow friends or neighbors or passers-by as if there was some secret I held. Sometimes I grew alarmed at the wreck I had perceived I had become. The energy of my purpose alone sustained me. My labors would soon end, and I believed that exercise and amusement would then drive away this insipid annoyance. And I promised myself both of these when my creation, my leafy creation, should be complete. Chapter 5. It was on a dreary night of November that I beheld the accomplishment of my toils. With an anxiety that almost amounted agony, I collected the instruments of life around me, leaf life, that I might infuse a spark of being into that thing that lay at my feet. It was already 1 a.m. The rain pattered dismally against the panes, and my candle was nearly burnt out, when, by the glimmer of the half-extinguished light, I saw some sweet, soft eyes in my pile of leaves, and the eyes opened, and they looked at me, and I felt the leaf breathe as one whole leaf, a leaf being, and emotion began to move its limbs. How can I describe my emotions at this, or how delineate this new being? But it was, I thought it was going to be a friend like me, but it was a friend of leaves. This is this being with whom such infinite pain and care I had endeavored to form. For a leaf-based being, his limbs were in proportion, and the leaves I had selected as his features, beautiful, beautiful. Oh, good gravy. Skin of green and gold, and rippling underneath the work of muscles and veins, the smell of chlorophyll. I said, as I breathe out, you breathe what I breathe out in, and I breathe in what you breathe out. Hair on its head, like cilia on leaves. It was lustrous, it was flowing, and it could smile, a green smile. But these luxuriances only formed something, a contrast with, but you're not like me. I was making a leaf-based version of me, but you're different. I don't know if it was the eyes or the motion. Something was just a bit off. And then the lips, they were leaf lips. I guess in my mind I didn't realize that. In my mind's eye, even though as a leaf-based being, those lips would have been, pink or light red or a dark red. The different accidents of life are not so changeable as the feelings of human nature. I'd worked hard for nearly 2 years for the sole purpose of infusing life into inanimate leaves. For this, I had deprived myself of rest and well-being. I desired it with an ardor. A word I've said many times, ardor. Ardor, ardor, ardor. Work harder with ardor. That ardor exceeded moderation. But now that I had finished, the beauty of the dream vanished, and the lifeless life leaves. Something filled my heart. This wasn't the grass was always greener, but the leaves were somewhere greener and golder And, the spectrum of the autumn. My heart was filled with rejection. Unable to endure the aspect of the being I'd created, I rushed out of the room and continued a long time traversing my bedchamber, unable to compose my mind to sleep. At length, lassitude succeeded to the tumult I had before endured, and I threw myself on my bed in my clothes, endeavoring to seek a few minutes of forgetfulness. But it was in vain. I slept indeed, but I was disturbed by the wildest dreams. I thought I saw Elizabeth in the bloom of health, walking the streets of Ingolstadt. Delighted and surprised, I embraced her, but as I imprinted the first kiss on her lips, they became livid and green like leaves. Her features appeared to change, and I thought I had held my mother in my arms suddenly. My arms around her, enveloped around her form, but yet I saw little leaves blooming from my mother's face, blooming out like she was a tree. I started from my sleep in surprise. A cold dew covered my forehead. My teeth chattered, and every limb shook, when, by the dim and yellow light of the moon, as it had forced its way through the window shutters, I beheld the leaf-based being, a miserable leaf-based being I had created. He held up the curtain of the bed, and his eyes, if eyes they may be called, were fixed on me. His mouth opened, and he muttered some inarticulate sounds, while a grin wrinkled his cheeks. He might have spoken, but I did not hear. One hand was stretched out, seemingly to hold me, or to wave to me, or to touch me, but I escaped and rushed downstairs. I took refuge in the courtyard belonging to the house in which I inhabited, during where I remained for the rest of the night, walking up and down in greatest agitation, listening attentively, catching and fearing each sound, as if it were to announce the approach of the leaf. I don't even have a word for it. To which I had given life. Oh, no mortal could support this countenance. Even if it was something else, like from a movie or a story that had sprung into life with animation, nothing could be as strange as my leaf buddy. I had gazed on him while he was unfinished, and it hit me now. That it hit me then that I said, not so sure about the way you look, but when those muscles and joints were rendered capable of motion, it became a thing even Dante could not have conceived. And not the Dante of Turtle, not a turtle Dante. I'm talking about Dante. I passed the night wretchedly. Sometimes my pulse beat so quickly and hardly that I felt the palpitation of every beat. At others, I nearly sank to the ground through languor and extreme weakness. Mingled with this dismay, I felt the bitterness of disappointment. Dreams that had been my food and pleasant rest for so long a space were now unpleasant to me, and the change was so rapid, the overflow so complete. Morning, dismal and wet, at length dawned and discovered to my sleepless and aching eyes the church of Ingolstadt, with its white temple and clock, which indicated the 6th hour. The portal opened the gates of the court, which had been the night closed, and I issued into the streets, pacing them with quick steps as if I sought to avoid the leaf wretch, whom I feared every turning the street would present into my view. I did not dare to return to the apartment which I inhabited, but felt impelled to hurry on, although drenched by rain which had poured from a black and comfortless sky. I continued walking in this manner for some time, endeavoring by bodily exercise to ease the load that weighed upon my mind. I traversed the streets without any clear conception of where I was or what I was doing. My heart palpitated in sickness and fear. and I hurried on with irregular steps, not daring to look about me. Quoting Coleridge, like one who on a lonely road doth walk in fear and dread, and having once turned round walks on, and turns no more his head, because he knows a frightful friend doth close behind him tread. It's from the Ancient Mariner. Continuing thus, I came at length opposite to the inn at which various diligence and carriages usually stopped. Here I paused, I knew not why, but I remained with some minutes with my eyes fixed on a coach that was coming towards me from the other end of the street. As it drew near, I observed that it was a Swiss diligence, and it stopped just where I was standing. And on the door being opened, I perceived Henry Clerval, who, on seeing me, instantly sprung out. "My dear Frankenstein," exclaimed he, "how I am glad to see you! How fortunate that you should be here at this very moment of my alighting!" Nothing could equal my delight on seeing Clerval. His presence brought back my thoughts to my father, Elizabeth, and all those scenes of home so dear to my recollection. I grasped his hand, and in a moment forgot my misfortune. I felt suddenly, for the first time during many months, a calm and serene joy. I welcomed my friend, and therefore, in the most cordial manner, we walked towards my college. Clerval continued talking for some time about our mutual friends and his own good fortune at being permitted to come to Ingolstadt. "You may easily believe," said he, "how great was the difficulty to persuade my father that all necessary knowledge was not comprised in the noble art of bookkeeping, and indeed I believe I left him incredulous to the last, for his constant answer to my unwearied entreaties was the same as that of the Dutch schoolmaster in the Vicar of Wakefield. I have 10,000 florins a year without Greek, and I eat heartily without Greek. But his affection for me at length overcame his dislike of learning, and he has permitted me to undertake a voyage of discovery to the land of knowledge. It gives me greatest delight to see you, but tell me how you left my father, brothers, and Elizabeth." "Very well, and very happy, only a little uneasy that they hear from you so seldom. By the by, I mean to lecture you a little upon their account myself. But, my dear Frankenstein," continued he, stopping short and gazing full into my face, "I did not before remark how very ill you appear. So thin and pale you look, as if you have been watching for several nights." "You've guessed it right. I've lately been so deeply engaged in one occupation that I have not allowed myself sufficient rest, as you see. But I sincerely hope that all these employments are now at an end, and I am at length free." I trembled excessively. I could not endure to think of, and far less to allude to, the occurrences of the preceding nights. I walked with a quick pace, and we soon arrived at my college. I then reflected, and the thought made me shiver, that the creature whom I had left in my apartment might still be there, alive and walking about. I dreaded to behold this leaf buddy, but I feared still more that Henry should see him. Entreating him, therefore, to remain a few minutes at the bottom of the stairs, I darted up towards my own room. My hand was already on the lock of the door before I recollected myself. I then paused, and a cold shivering came over me. I forced the door forcibly open, as children are accustomed to do when they expect a surprise to stand in waiting for them on the other side, but nothing appeared. I stepped fearfully in. The apartment was empty, and my bedroom was also empty, no leaf-based being guessed. I could hardly believe so great a fortune could have befallen me. But when I became sure that my enemy had indeed fled, I clapped my hands for joy and ran down to Clerval. We ascended into my room, and the servant presently brought breakfast. But I was unable to contain myself. It was not joy only that possessed me. I felt my flesh tingle with the excess of sensitiveness, and my pulse beat rapidly. I was unable to remain for a single instant in the same place. I jumped over the chairs, I clapped my hands, and I laughed aloud. Clerval at first attributed my unusual spirits to joy on his arrival, but when he observed me more attentively, he saw wildness in my eyes, for which he could not account, and my loud, unrestrained, heartless laughter frightened and astonished him. "My dear Victor," cried he, "what for God's sake is the matter? Do not laugh in that manner. How ill you are! What is the cause of all this?" Do not ask me," I cried, putting my hands before my eyes, for I dreaded that I saw the dreaded Leaf glide into the room. He can tell. Oh, save me, save me. I imagined that my Leaf buddy grabbed me and started dancing with me, and then I fell down in a fit. Poor Clerval. What must have been his feelings? A meeting, which he anticipated with such joy, seeing me, of course, so strangely turned into bitterness. But I was not the witness of his grief, for I was lifeless and did not recover my senses for a long, long time. This was the commencement of a nervous fever which confined me for several months. During all that time, Henry was my only nurse. I afterwards learned that, knowing my father's advanced age and unfitness for so long a journey, and how wretched my sickness would make Elizabeth, he spared them this grief by concealing the extent of my disorder. He knew that I could not have had a more kind and attentive nurse than himself, and, firm in the hope he felt of my recovery, he did not doubt. Instead of doing harm, he performed the kindest action he could towards them. But I was in reality very ill, and surely nothing but the unbounded and unremitting attentions of my friend could have restored me. The form of my Leaf buddy whom I had bestowed existence was forever before my eyes, and I raved incessantly concerning him. Doubtless my words surprised Henry, and sometimes I would call Henry Leafy, by accident. He at first believed them to be the wanderings of my disturbed imagination, but the pertinacity with which I continually recurred to the same subject persuaded him that my disorder indeed owed its origin to some uncommon and surprising events. By very slow degrees and with frequent relapses that alarmed and grieved my friend, I recovered. I remember the first time I became capable of observing outward objects with any kind of pleasure. I perceived that the fallen leaves had disappeared, and the young buds were shooting forth from the trees that shaded my window. It was a divine spring, and the season contributed greatly to my convalescence. I felt also sentiments of joy and affection revive in my bosom. My gloom disappeared, and in a short time I became as cheerful as before, when I was overcome with that passion, a science-based Leaf passion. "Dearest Clerval," exclaimed I, "how kind, how very good you are to me. This whole winter, instead of being spent in study as you promised yourself, you have been consumed in my sick room. How shall I ever repay you? I feel the greatest remorse for the disappointment of which I have been the occasion, but you will forgive me. You will repay me entirely if you do not discompose yourself, but get well as fast as you can, and since you appear in such good spirits, I may speak to you on one subject, may I not?" I trembled. One subject? What could it be? Could he allude to an object on whom I dared not even think? "Compose yourself," said Clerval, who observed the change in color. "I will not mention if it agitates you, but your father and cousin would be very happy if they received a letter from you in your own handwriting. They hardly know how ill you have been and uneasy at your long silence." Is that all, my dear Henry? How could you suppose that my first thought would not fly towards those dear friends whom I love and who are so deserving of my love? If this is your present temper, my friend, you perhaps will be glad to see a letter that has been lying here some days from you. It is from your cousin, I believe. This is Scoots with a tuck you in message. So if you're still hearing me and listening to me, I hope this show is a part of your life and it brings you comfort even when it can't help you fall asleep, or maybe most nights it keeps you company, helps you fall asleep, distracts you, your boyfriend, you know. And if the show does make your life better, makes your life a little bit easier, even in the depths of the night, like right now when we're just hanging out and plenty of episodes ready to go, I hope you'll consider supporting the show back. You know, Sleep With Me Plus is how we're able to be here night after night after night, and the listeners who support the show at any level for any amount of time, the show is a regular part of your life. And you could do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. And if you're chilling with me now today, why not try it out right now? You could try a 7-day trial, get all the bonus content set up tomorrow, see what you think, take 5-6 days. If it isn't the best way you've listened to the show, you know, there's like an entire podcast full of ad-free full episodes. There's an entire podcast full of story-only episodes. Those also don't have ads. And then there's a bonus podcast full of really, really cool stuff. And if you're a boyfriend or a boy best, you also get a podcast full of all-night episodes and all intro episodes. So please think about it. If you say, no, I can't support the show right now, I could still use your vote yes to keep making the show. Because just moving on from this message, if you're listening to me and you're saying, no, I'm not going to do anything, that's a no for me to keep making the show. And that's just a reality. The show is at a point right now where without the support of the listeners, we can't keep going. So if you can't support the show financially, you have two options. If you still want to be a part of something, you want access to ad-free episodes, you want the show to be here next year, the year after that, join the referral program at sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer and refer people to the free podcast. You'll get rewarded for it. Their lives will be better because you'll be helping them out. And it'll be a huge, huge boost to the show. It's way better to support the show through the referral program than telling me, yeah, one day Scoots will support the podcast financially, but now right now it just doesn't work. I'd rather you support the show right now through the referral program so we can keep making the show. So please consider that. Or just decide you're not going to support the show and fill out the form. You say, no, I'm not. I want you to keep making the show. Yes. I am a super listener. Yes. But I'm not. I don't want to support the show financially. And I don't want to do any, like, help out via the referral program. I don't want to help out, but I do want you to keep making it. And I have a good reason for it. You probably have a good reason for it. Fill out the form at sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. Because if we get 1,500 people in the referral program and then 1,500 people or something that say, nah, I want you to keep making it, but I'm not going to support it. It says to me that I should find a way to keep making this free podcast, even if it's going to be tough, because there's people willing to spread the word about the show. And there's people who are willing to say, yes, keep making it. I'm not going to support it, but keep making it. It's important enough for me. It's important enough to me that I took the time to make a choice and say, no, I'm not going to support it, which is 1,000 times more powerful than just tuning me out or ignoring me, or saying, yeah, I'll help the podcast one day, or I'll say no one day. That day may never, Sleep With Me might not make it to that day without one of those three actions. If you take one of those three actions, you could have full confidence. Not only are you a super listener, but you're a super listener that's invested your time back into the podcast and makes your life better. Thanks. And now we got the audio news, which we haven't done in a while. So this is what we got coming out on Sleep With Me Plus. A lot of this stuff will be coming out in the ad-supported feed as well. 1357 was a balcony brick building episode as part of the Orlando Park Stop fundraiser for the Trevor Project. Then we had Ray covering Horizons, the extinct Epcot attraction. That was also in as part of the Orlando Park Stop fundraiser. Let's see. We had a repeat of a classic episode, Hamlet with Brainbots. That's a really good one. Where I got out of the house. Great British Bake Off 6, Japanese Week. Then Bernie returns to the show after a long absence, even for a recording he never showed up to. And he does his reinterpretation of the story I told. So you could either sleep through it or wonder what Bernie's version is. That's Cat on Yarn. Then a classic TNG episode, Fistful of Datas, or Datas, you know. Then Bessos 11, Big Farm in the Sky, Bessos 11. Then something 2. I can't read my handwriting. Friend 2? No. Fox 2? Huh, interesting. An episode. Oh, Frankie and Victor, part 2. Then Jenny, the new username generator. One of my favorite episodes I've ever done. And then a 4th of July all intro episode. That's what we got coming up. But we're also deep into subscriber summer. So if you listen on Sleep With Me Plus, if you're a Sleep With Me Plus subscriber and you're listening to this, one, if you ever need any help at all, just send an email to our support team, support@supercast.com. But also all those episodes are going to be in the ad-free full episode feed and the story-only feed. So all those are going to be coming out. What else we got? So if you're a Boar friend or a Boar bestie, you have the all intro all night feed. There's an all intro that comes out on June 5th. June 12th, the all night Boredom Institute episode. And they're called all nights, but they're around 4 hours long just because of the file sizes. We can't make them any longer than that. And then an all intro episode comes out after that. And then in the bonus feed, subscriber summer is in effect. So in the bonus feed, we got Posty 189 came out June 11th. No, not June 11th. June 11th, first subscriber summer episode, I think, comes out. Archie McPhee catalog. I think I read through 3 different Archie McPhee catalogs. Then Posty 190. Then Ray on a balcony in Anaheim. Holy cow, I can't wait for that. Right, Ray? And then either Frank episode 12 or episode 14, depending on which level you support the show at. So a lot of great stuff. If you support the show on Sleep With Me Plus and you're hearing this, thank you so much. Could not do it without you. Remember, you could always get a hold of support@supercast.com. Make sure you are either on our Discord or subscribe to the Sleep With Me Plus newsletter. You've gotten we've been sending out emails about it. And yeah, you can always reach out to me anytime through the contact form on our website. Anybody can. Can't do without all of you. I'm happy to be here to put you to sleep. And thanks so much for listening, and good night.